The Victorian Age, named after Queen Victoria. She was 18 when she became queen in the year 1837, and she was queen until her death in 1901 for almost 64 years. So the Victorian Age is 1837 until 1901. During that time, the British Empire expanded in Africa and India and Australia and other parts of the world. Many people from Britain left Britain and settled in these other areas of the world. 13 million, the number. There were also people coming to Britain, for example, Russian Jews. And a lot of other things happened. Trading and commerce happened. Industrialization had gone on. The corn laws were abolished in 1847, for example, and 46, and that made it possible that firms were buying grain cheap from other countries and other raw materials also, because the taxes and tariffs on importing goods were abolished. In 1847, then it was made law that women and children can maximum work for 10 hours, so the working conditions got better. Transporting conditions got better. George and Robert Stephenson developed the railway, pioneered in the railway, and a lot of railways were built. For example, the Great Western Railway from London Paddington Station to the west, to the southern part of England, to the West Midlands and to Wales. That was constructed by Ishmael Kingdom Brunel, an architect who also built bridges and tunnels and railway lines and ships. And some of his buildings, for example the Clifton Suspension Bridge, are still standing today and are in use. But other things happened also. There was the Crimean War during the Victorian Age. The Crimean War was 1853 until 1856, and that was fought Britain and Turkey and France against Russia on the Crimean Peninsula. It was the first war to be covered extensively by photographs and newspaper stories, and more soldiers died from infections which were caught in hospitals rather than from war wounds. And it was also then the time when the Victoria Cross was given out for soldiers who showed valor. There was Florence Nightingale. She was a nurse in the Crimean War in 1854, which she went with, and she treated soldiers in Turkey. And she improved the conditions of his hospitals so that less people died. And then in 1860, she opened in the St. Thomas Hospital the Nightingale Training School for Nurses, the first of its kind, and so she is seen as the founder of modern nursing. Other things also happened. Now there were, for example, Emmeline Pankhurst. Emmeline Pankhurst founded in the year 1903 the Women's Social and Political Union, WSUP, and they were the first one called the Suffragettes. Now the story is, in 1832 there was the first Reform Act with which more people could vote, and in 1867 a second one with which more people could vote. So they needed less property to have a right to vote, and now also people of the middle class, of the working class, could vote. But women were still completely excluded. And she already founded, Emmeline Pankhurst, in 1889, the Women's Feature League. And they fought for the right of married women to go to local elections. And now there were the Chartists in the 1830s and 40s. They wanted for every man in every region, every year, the right to vote and also to be voted for. And now there were the Suffragettes. For example, then that group with Emmeline Pankhurst, Women's Social and Political Union, 1903 founded, and they fought, for example, also the civil obedience for the right to vote. They, for example, committed arson, they chained themselves to railways, they went on hunger strike. And actually in the year 1928, women got the full right to vote as men had it. And there were, for example, authors, for example, Rudyard Kipling, born in 1865 in India, living in the United Kingdom, United States and India. He wrote, for example, If, which is a poem and which advises people to be calm and patient, even if the people around him are not to return hatred, but not to pretend too good. Or he wrote also the Jungle Book. In 1907 he won the Literature Nobel Prize. Then there was the Boer War in 1899 until 1903 against Dutch settlers in Africa. Many people sympathized with them, also publicly, and some people started to think that maybe the empire has overexpanded, and then over the course of the 20th century, many countries of the empire gained gradually independence, mostly peacefully. And that is according to the Life in UK Test Handbook on several pages, for example, 45.